The Dark Brotherhood have always been one of my favourite Elder Scrolls factions, and I have a particular soft spot for their appearance in Oblivion. It's one of the best quest lines in the series. With that in mind, I wanted to take a look at the storyline itself, but also dig in to what are either confirmed or theoretical influences behind that storyline, as well as various elements of the Brotherhood itself. Many of you, of course, will know who the Dark Brotherhood are, but for those who don't, here's a quick rundown. They are Tamriel's secret guild of assassins, a family bound by blood, shadow, and the worship of a sinister deity named Sithis. Hushed rumours spread through the populace of a murderous cult that answers prayers for death, perform the profane Black Sacrament, an occult ritual involving a stabbed effigy and a plea to the Night Mother, and the Brotherhood will send one of their own to fulfill your desire. The implication is clear: no one is safe from the Brotherhood's reach. Now, as I said earlier, this video will be focusing mainly on the Dark Brotherhood in Oblivion. I'll more than likely cover the deeper history and lore surrounding them in another video, but we will look at some influences on their appearance in Oblivion before we launch into the storyline. It could be argued that Oblivion was the first Elder Scrolls game that fully realised the Dark Brotherhood as one of the game's most memorable questlines and factions. More so than in Daggerfall and Morrowind, Bethesda gave this shadowy guild a rich narrative, a distinctive gothic flavour, and a blood-soaked, twist-filled storyline that remains one of my absolute favourites. In Oblivion, we're introduced to the Dark Brotherhood not simply as a bunch of generic killers, but as a deeply cultic organisation, complete with a dark religion. The worship of Sithis, the Void, a matron spirit, the Night Mother, reimagined as an immortal ghostly figure who is bride to Sithis and mother to all Brotherhood members. And even a set of supposed commandments, the 5 tenets that govern their family. Some players have commented that when Bethesda's Emil Pagliarulo was in charge of writing for Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood storyline and background, he effectively overwrote some of the earlier lore to create a more compelling mythic framework. The result feels equal parts historical secret society, horror story, and murder mystery all rolled into one. I myself, of course, am a big fan of what was put together for Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood arc, and I don't think I'm alone in praising the quality of storytelling and the variety of missions. This, of course, is no surprise. These drew on a wide range of inspirations from real-world assassin cults to classic literature and film, which all played their part to craft each murderous assignment. To return to Emil Pagliarulo, he once took to a developer diary to explain what lay behind his thinking process for writing the Dark Brotherhood questline. Interestingly, he gives us a bit of background that's quite telling. According to Emil, I've had an unhealthy obsession with stealth games and stealth game design since I first played Thief the Dark Project. That obsession was only strengthened when I went to work as a designer on the Thief series at Looking Glass Studios and Ion Storm Austin, and is still with me today as I help incorporate what I learned into the Elder Scrolls series here at Bethesda. It is interesting that we find our first influence on the Dark Brotherhood Oblivion content from another game series, but it's far from the last thing to influence Emil's creativity. On the stealth aspect, he continues, "So naturally, it's been my goal from the beginning to incorporate every stealth gameplay element available in Oblivion into the Dark Brotherhood questline. What does that mean for players? Well, they'll just have to wait and find out. What does that mean for the hapless NPCs populating Cyrodiil? To be honest, I really have to pity them." Under his direction, the missions became a sort of stealth sandbox exploring different styles of assassination. Poison, intrigue, staged accidents, and so on, in creative ways. But it wasn't just that. He wanted it to feel different, more evil than it was in previous titles. In Morrowind, players could join the Morag Tong and commit government-sanctioned acts of murder. In Oblivion, I wanted to take a different, decidedly more evil approach. Gone are the writs that essentially served as get-out-of-jail-free cards you could simply wave in front of a guard's face to walk away with cold-blooded murder. No, make no mistake, in Oblivion, those who join the Dark Brotherhood will operate on the wrong side of the law. When you kill for family, authorities be damned, and Sithis be praised. Interestingly, I even found an academic paper quoting Pagliarulo when he noted how he trawled fan forums for ideas when designing these quests. For me, he said, the most fascinating thing about designing stealth gameplay in Oblivion is trawling the Elder Scrolls forums and reading suggestions from the fans. In interviews, he and other developers have hinted at the narrative influences behind the Dark Brotherhood. They mention the family dynamic of the Brotherhood, a perverse mirror of both organised crime families and religious cults, and how the questline's twists were inspired by classic whodunit stories and horror tropes. Indeed, as we will see, almost every major quest in the saga contains nods to some book, myth, or movie lurking in the background, but we'll get more into that as we go along. So with that background covered, we can now start looking at the actual game content. Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood quests invite the player to live the life of an assassin from initiation to rising through the ranks, all set against a backdrop of betrayal and occult mystery. The story unfolds chronologically as a series of contracts and plot twists, each with its own atmosphere and illusions, so for the purposes of the video we will follow the entire Dark Brotherhood questline in Oblivion step by step, examining not only what happens in each mission but also how it connects to literary, mythological, philosophical or pop culture influences, and maybe even some others as well. Basically, I'm interested in what inspired the whole thing, and not only that, along the way, continue to highlight any behind-the-scenes insights, like developer comments or design notes, that shed light on the creative process. By the end, we'll not only have experienced the Brotherhood's tale in Oblivion together, but also hopefully have gained an appreciation for the rich intertextual soil from which it grew, whether directly confirmed or otherwise. A quick note too, there may be some repeated references, but that's only because they relate to multiple areas of the storyline. I'll try to keep that to a minimum or condense later nods to the same influences. Just letting you know now before we carry on. Anyway, with all that being said, let's finally get into Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood questline once and for all. Our descent into darkness begins not in some dank guild hall, but with a single act of violence committed by the player. In Oblivion, unlike other guilds which you can seek out openly, the Dark Brotherhood finds you. To draw their attention, your character must murder an innocent, any non-competent will do, and then go to sleep with blood on your hands. This mechanic is brilliantly meta. It forces the player to commit a transgressive act, crossing a moral threshold to trigger the Brotherhood's approach. It's almost ritualistic. Unbeknownst to your character, you've performed a kind of initiatory sacrifice, echoing the idea that spilling innocent blood calls out to Sithis. Indeed, the moment you rest, you're greeted with one of Oblivion's most iconic and chilling scenes. You wake up in a dark room to find a figure in a black robe and hood looming over your bed. This visitation carries a strong flavour of supernatural horror. I myself recall feeling a jolt of fear years ago, the first time I experienced it, having an assassin literally appear beside me as I slept, like a vampire in the night. Lucien Lechance's introduction exemplifies the Dark Brotherhood's theatrical style. He congratulates you on your murderous deed, which he calls a purification of the victim's soul, and extends an invitation to join the family of Sithis. The entire encounter feels eerily personal and occult. In terms of literary inspiration, there's a touch of Faustian bargain here, a Mephistophelian figure appearing to someone who's just sinned, offering power in exchange for further damnation. One might think of the devil visiting a murderer at midnight to recruit them. There are also shades of Gothic literature. The dark stranger at one's bedside calls to mind vampiric imagery. Indeed, one Brotherhood member we'll meet later is a literal vampire. Not only that, the quest that this scene initiates is titled A Knife in the Dark. This title itself is a direct reference to a chapter of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. In The Fellowship of the Ring, A Knife in the Dark is the chapter where the hobbits are attacked by the ring wraiths at night on Weathertop. The choice of this title is fitting and likely deliberate in Tolkien's story as shadowy evil strikes under cover of darkness, which neatly parallels the Brotherhood's emergence in Oblivion. By invoking that chapter title, the game developers immediately set a tone of stealthy menace steeped in fantasy tradition. It's a clever nod that fantasy literature fans might recognise, a promise that this questline will embrace the classic cloak and dagger thrills. And speaking of daggers, LeChance gives the player a literal dagger, the initiation weapon fittingly named the Blade of Woe, and instructions to visit the Inn of Ill Omen to kill a man named Rufio. This becomes your entry test. The Brotherhood requires proof of your commitment by performing a sanctioned kill.
You sleep rather soundly for a murderer. That's good. You'll need a clear conscience for what I'm about to propose. You prefer silence, then? As do I, my dear child, as do I. For is silence not the symphony of death, the orchestration of Sithis himself? Ironic, then, that I come to you now as speaker for the Dark Brotherhood. My name is Lucien LeChance, and my voice is the will of the Night Mother. She's been watching you, observing as you kill, admiring as you end life without pity or remorse. The Night Mother is most pleased. That is why I stand here before you. I bear an offering, an opportunity to join our rather unique family. Then heed my words, for I will not repeat them. On the green road to the north of Bravil lies the Inn of Ill Omen. There you will find a man named Rufio. Kill him, and your initiation into the Dark Brotherhood will be complete. Do this, and the next time you sleep in a location I deem secure, I will reveal myself once more, bearing the love of your new family. Please, accept this token from the Dark Brotherhood. It is a virgin blade and thirst for blood. May it serve you well, as does your silence. Now I bid you farewell. I do hope we'll meet again soon. Your path is clear. Send Rufio to his death, and the Dark Brotherhood will embrace you as family.
Notably, LeChance uses familial language, calling himself your new friend and referring to the Brotherhood as a family. The motif of family in an assassin context evokes parallels to organised crime families in fiction, particularly the Mafia. We might recall how in the Godfather films the Mafia uses terms like family and has initiation rites for new members, including the idea that one must make their bones by spilling blood. The Dark Brotherhood mirrors this. You must commit murder to truly be one of them. Even the offer you can't refuse vibe is present. LeChance basically says, join us by killing this target or face unspecified consequences. The difference is the quasi-religious undertone. It's not simply a case of becoming a hitman, you're embracing the teachings of the Dread Father. This mix of mobster and cult rhetoric sets the Brotherhood apart as a unique faction, but one grounded in real-world analogues. Historically, secret murder societies like the Order of Assassins or Hashashin of medieval Persia recruited and indoctrinated followers into a fanatical brotherhood of killers. The Hashashin were said to require absolute obedience and carried out stealthy killings, often after intimate instruction from their leaders. The connections don't end there, of course. The Hashashin operated under intense loyalty to their leader, the Old Man of the Mountain, which sounds like something that would have influenced the concept of a Night Mother. Like the Brotherhood, the Hashashin were at times reputed to use covert murder as a political tool, and their mystique in popular imagination, poisonings, dagger-wielding agents slipping into castle walls, helped coin the very term assassin. Another very likely historical influence is the legend of the Thuggee in India, a secret cult that strangled victims as sacrifices to the goddess Kali. While the Dark Brotherhood's worship of Sithis isn't a direct copy of Kali or any real religion, the idea of a death cult following esoteric rites such as the Black Sacrament recalls these tales of lethal secret societies entwining murder and worship. The Brotherhood's structure even borrows the language of familial and religious orders, calling each other brother and sister, revering an unholy mother, and forming an inner circle called the Black Hand, comprised of 4 speakers and 1 listener, each finger and the thumb of the hand. The name Black Hand itself has roots in our world. It was famously used as the moniker of a Serbian secret society that practiced political assassinations in the early 20th century. And more loosely, Black Hand referred to mafia extortionists as well. Undoubtedly, Bethesda's writers wove all these influences into the Dark Brotherhood's entire vibe, creating the flavour we know so well. Moving back to Lucien's introduction and his character, I've always felt that his one-on-one mentorship in this moment echoes the kind of master-apprentice dynamic found in both Assassin Legends and Sith Lord and apprentice relationships in Star Wars, itself inspired by mythic evil mentor tropes. And beyond that, another pretty cool piece of trivia. As we all know, Bethesda loves their Easter eggs, and with Lucien, it seems that they included a meta-literary one. Lucien Lechance's name would appear to be no accident. It's very similar to Lucien Lacroix, a character from the 1990s Canadian show Forever Knight, who was a charismatic vampire elder guiding the protagonist. Lechance is also a charismatic, somewhat otherworldly guide. Given the fact that he appears to be a caricature or reference to Lucien Lacroix, this suggests to me that the devs had a bit of fun nodding to a modern gothic character as well. Definitely something fun to consider. Moving back to the story, your journey to the Inn of Ill Omen and the murder of the hapless Rufio is straightforward, almost an anticlimax by design. Rufio is a feeble old man hiding in a basement, and many players might feel a pang of pity initially before they realise what exactly it is he has done to deserve his end.
Who are you? What do you want? I ain't done nothing. No, please. I didn't mean to do it, you understand me? She struggled. I told her to just stay still, but she wouldn't listen. I had no choice.
In any case, this deliberate setup forces you as a player to reflect. I really am killing on orders now. It cements your role as an assassin in training and tests whether you'll go through with it. Story-wise, there isn't much twist here other than the reveal of what Rufio had done to deserve his fate, but from an influences standpoint, one might see Rufio as analogous to the concept of a sacrificial lamb. Despite the fact that he is in no way innocent, his name Rufio is reminiscent of the Latin rufus, meaning red. Perhaps a coincidence, but red is the colour of sacrifice and blood. In any case, when you next sleep, Lechance returns and welcomes you formally into the Dark Brotherhood, directing you to the Brotherhood's sanctuary.
So, the deed is done. How do I know this? You will find that the Dark Brotherhood knows a great many things, for you are now part of the family. Now, heed these words. The slaying of Rufio was the signing of a covenant, the manner of execution, your signature, Rufio's blood, the ink. As a speaker of the Black Hand, I directly oversee a particular group of family members. You will join that group and fulfill any contracts given. You must now go to the city of Cheydinhal, to the abandoned house near the eastern wall. Enter the basement and attempt to open the black door. You will be asked a question. Answer thusly. Sanguine, my brother. you will gain entrance to the sanctuary. Once inside, speak with Ocheeva. We must now take our leave of each other, you and I, for there is much work to be done. I'll be following your progress. Welcome to the family.
This whole prologue, essentially the entire quest, functions as a dark baptism for the player. Before leaving the prologue, it's worth noting one more pop cultural reference: the Inn of Ill Omen. The name is ridiculously melodramatic, calling to mind gothic inns from horror tales, and to be honest, it makes you wonder about the branding and marketing behind the name. Surely the owners would realise that it isn't exactly a friendly name inspiring confidence for people choosing to stay. It sounds like something straight out of a Hammer horror film or an Edgar Allan Poe story, and it also brings to mind the naming conventions of early Dungeons & Dragons modules, places like Bone Hill or Dead Man's Rest, where danger is built into the signage. The whole first mission, as it were, is also a clever tutorial in roleplay. Oblivion essentially asks, are you willing to kill for selfish reasons? If so, here's a whole questline to explore that choice. Emil Pagliarulo noted that this questline was for players who jumped the moral fence and didn't look back, and indeed crossing the threshold of killing is the price of admission. With the deed done and the pact sealed, we journey to our new home, the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary in Cheydinhal. What awaits is a rogues gallery of cutthroats and the beginning of a series of contracts that range from the grimly poetic to the fiendishly clever. As we step into the sanctuary, the Dark family welcomes us, and the true narrative of the Brotherhood questline begins. The sanctuary itself is hidden beneath an abandoned house, a classic secret lair straight out of detective fiction or pulp thriller. Inside, the atmosphere is immediately that of a twisted family home. You're greeted by Ocheeva, a female Argonian assassin who is trusted to run the daily operations of this chapter in the absence of Lucien Lechance. And our brother Teinaava, plus a host of eccentric members, a cheerful wood elf poisoner, an antisocial orc, and Vicente Valtieri, an older Imperial who is a vampire offering fatherly guidance. This motley crew shows the Brotherhood's diversity, but also its cult-like unity. Everyone refers to each other as brother or sister, and they welcome you as the new family member with unsettling warmth. There's a bit of a perverse Addams Family vibe. They're deadly killers, yet exhibit camaraderie and dark humour in their interactions. This dynamic probably drew inspiration from villain ensembles in pop culture. For example, one is reminded of the assassins in the rather obviously named film Assassins, which came out in 1995, or the League of Shadows in Batman comics, disparate individuals bound by a lethal creed. In literature, it's akin to a coven of witches or vampires who call each other brother and sister. Anne Rice's vampire novels come to mind, where vampires form pseudo-families. Within the sanctuary, the decor and details amplify a sense of gothic horror and dark humour. The ambience is reminiscent of a crypt or a serial killer's lair in a horror movie. Think of the underground lairs in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In fact, the idea of a refuge for murderers has roots in Gothic literature. In William Harrison Ainsworth's 19th century novel Rookwood, there's a band of highwaymen who treat their hideout as home, complete with morbid camaraderie singing ballads of death. The Brotherhood Sanctuary definitely has that fellowship of sin feeling. Your introduction to Sanctuary life is also a crash course in the philosophy of the Brotherhood. Vicente Valtieri in particular imparts a quasi-chivalric view of assassination. He speaks of killing as an art and a sacred duty to Sithis. This reminds us of the real-world Hashashin doctrine we looked at earlier, where assassins saw murder as a righteous act ordained by their faith, and it's worth mentioning again that it also parallels the Thuggee cult of India, who worshipped the goddess Kali, believing they were serving her by strangling victims, effectively sanctifying their crimes. As Vicente reminds us, with each kill presented not as a crime but as an offering to Sithis and the 5 tenets providing a moral framework, albeit a twisted one, it offers fertile ground for philosophical reflection. The Brotherhood has its own internal morality, honour among murderers, which sets them apart from mere psychopaths. Revisiting another area we touched upon but adding another dimension, with the organised crime aspect we already acknowledged that it's not unlike the concept of Omerta, the Mafia code of silence and loyalty. But here it's combined with religious fervour. Indeed, one might say the Brotherhood is like Cosa Nostra as reimagined by H.P. Lovecraft, a secret society of killers who pray to an eldritch void. Anyway, having met your new family, you begin taking on contracts handed out by Ocheeva and Vicente. These initial contracts serve as individual short stories, each with a unique method and flavour, almost like episodes in an anthology. As we explore them one by one, we'll uncover a treasure trove of influences. Your first contract as a brother is called a watery grave. The target, a pirate captain holed up on a ship, the Maria Elena, docked in the Imperial City. The mission, infiltrate the ship and kill the captain. On the surface, this is a straightforward hit with options for stealth or frontal assault. But consider the scenario's influences. This is an assassination on a pirate ship which resonates with swashbuckling adventure tales and naval intrigue. The very name, a watery grave, is a common phrase meaning death at sea. It's appeared in seafaring literature and even as the title of a 1950s crime novel. By using that title, the quest frames the mission in the tradition of maritime murder mysteries. One might think of And Then There Were None, not the Agatha Christie story itself, which we'll get to soon, but one of its film adaptations which was set on a yacht. More fittingly, the idea of sneaking onto a ship to eliminate a captain recalls scenes from pirate fiction and historical accounts of privateers. There's a whiff of Captain Flint and Treasure Island here, cutthroats in cramped quarters, betrayal on the high seas. If one reaches, you might even draw parallels to the boarding of the ship Demeter in Bram Stoker's Dracula, where Dracula systematically kills the crew at sea. After all, you are something of a vampire in the night on that ship, especially if you choose stealth. The quest offers multiple approaches. You can charge in blade swinging or sneak and dispatch the captain quietly in his cabin. From a gameplay perspective, we know that Emile Pagliarulo was influenced by Thief, but also this was possibly influenced by Hitman-style game design. By 2006, the Hitman series was well established, and one hallmark of those games is infiltrating heavily guarded locations to take out targets creatively. While Oblivion isn't nearly as flexible as Hitman, this quest emulates that feeling, giving you a defined space, a ship with guards, and leaving the method up to you. Literary-wise, there isn't a specific famous story of an assassin on a ship that stands out, but the scenario taps into archetypal fears of being trapped with a killer in a confined space. A watery grave mostly sets a tone. After the fairly easy killing of Rufio away from the public eye, you now carry out a daring murder on a boat, signalling that the Brotherhood's work can occur anywhere, even in broad daylight amid civilization if you're skilled enough. We could also draw parallels between the name of the ship, the Maria Elena, and the famous case of the Marie Celeste, where an entire crew vanished at sea. Though this is admittedly a bit tenuous, I do feel that the devs must have included this similar ship name as a bit of an unsettling nod, adding to the vibes of the entire quest. Anyway, in the end you dispatch the captain and likely make your escape by diving overboard into the harbour. Reporting back to the Brotherhood with your success, you're rewarded and praised.
So, the pirate has been eliminated. Excellent. No one will mourn his passing, and Sithis has been appeased. Please accept this black band as your reward. It is a ring whose powers are quite useful to those who value discretion.
The Dark Brotherhood reinforces that any location, be it a humble inn or a ship on the water, can become a killing ground. And now it's time for some more increasingly creative contracts. If a watery grave let you play Swashbuckler, the next contract, Accidents Happen, lets you play Grim Reaper in a domestic farce. This quest is a favourite of many, myself included, for its ingenuity. You are tasked to kill a wood elf named Bainlin in the city of Bruma, but to avoid blame, you must make it look like an accident. Specifically, you're instructed to cause his death by toppling a heavy-mounted Minotaur head trophy from above his chair while he's sitting beneath it.
We need you to stage an accident. Kill the target in the manner specified, and you'll receive a considerable bonus. Do you accept this contract? As I expected. Good. The target is a wood elf named Bainlin. You will find him at his home in Bruma. Enter secretly and avoid his manservant, Grom. On the second floor is a secret door leading to a crawl space. Inside are the fastenings of a mounted head that hangs over Bainlin's favorite chair. Loosen those fastenings any night between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m., and the head will surely fall on Bainlin as he relaxes in his chair, as is his custom. If Bainlin is eliminated in any other manner, or if the manservant Grom is killed, you will forfeit the bonus. Now go, and may Sithis be with you.
This mission oozes black comedy. Picture it, an assassin creeping through the attic, loosening the fastenings of a giant taxidermied minotaur head, timing it just as the old man relaxes with his dinner, and crunch. The deed is done, no one the wiser. It's gruesome and funny in a morbid way, very much channeling the spirit of an Agatha Christie or Conan Doyle plot where someone is killed by a falling chandelier or a rigged statue. As many of you will no doubt know, detective fiction has a subgenre of murder that looks like an accident, and this quest pays homage to that trope. A clear influence here that we've mentioned before is the Hitman games again, where arranging accidental deaths is a core mechanic. For example, in Hitman 2 Silent Assassin, which came out in 2002, there's a mission where you drop a chandelier on a target. It's fun to see a fantasy role-playing game incorporate this concept so explicitly. It demonstrates the devs' awareness of broader gaming trends and how they married it with the narrative of this entire questline. As we noted earlier, Emil Pagliarulo mentioned wanting every stealth element in these quests, and here we have environmental kills on clear display. From a literary and cinematic lens, Accidents Happen brings to mind slapstick mixed with horror. One could imagine this scene in a Hitchcock dark comedy or an old film noir. The assassin arranges an accident to avoid suspicion. There's a touch of Kind Hearts and Coronets, which came out in 1949, a British black comedy film where the protagonist dispatches a series of relatives in cunning ways to inherit a dukedom. In one scene of that film, a heavy object is used to kill, quite analogous to our Minotaur head. Additionally, the quest evokes the Rube Goldbergian murders seen in the Final Destination horror movies, which many of you will know revolve around elaborately staged fatal accidents, albeit much less convoluted here. Interesting too is the victim Bainlin, who's portrayed as a somewhat sympathetic elderly man doting on his manservant. As the assassin, you might feel a twinge as you orchestrate his end. This scenario, the dutiful servant finding his master crushed, even has shades of a tragic scene in literature. It's reminiscent of something from Dickens, a kindly old gentleman killed in a freak accident, or a cautionary Victorian tale. If we stretch into mythology, one could abstractly compare it to fate and hubris. Bainlin sits beneath the symbol of his hunting prowess. He presumably killed that Minotaur in his youth, and ultimately is killed by it. That's almost poetic justice, like a hunter slain by his trophy, which could be an allusion to Actaeon from Greek myth, who was a hunter killed by his own hounds. Anyway, after executing this accident, you slip out unseen and the death is written off as an unfortunate mishap. The brilliance of Accidents Happen lies in its subversion. It's an assassination without the stigma of murder, at least in the eyes of the law. Philosophically, it raises the question, if no one knows it was murder, does it morally differ from actual accident? The Brotherhood of course delights in the result regardless. For the player, this is an exercise in cold-blooded detachment. You literally kill without ever confronting your victim, making you feel more like death's silent agent than a warrior. It sets a tone that some Brotherhood killings are clever puzzles, as much as violent acts.
So, the accident has been staged and Bainlin lies dead. Well done. You have more than earned your reward and bonus. I present to you this dagger. It's an enchanted blade known as Sufferthorn. Its prick is deadly, I assure you. Yes, you are quite an asset to this sanctuary. In fact, I believe you are ready for advancement. I hereby appoint you Slayer. Well done. Now go, child of Sithis. Go and rest. You'll need it.
Next up, scheduled for execution, sends you to the Imperial Prison, the very prison from which you originally escaped at the start of Oblivion's main story, now to infiltrate it and assassinate a prisoner named Valen Dreth.
Back for more? It just so happens I have another contract available, one that requires an expert in infiltration. As always, you fail to disappoint me. Your target is a dark elf named Valen Dreth. He thinks he's safe in prison. He is tragically mistaken. A prisoner recently escaped from the prison using a set of secret tunnels connected to the Imperial City's sewer system. It's a perfect way inside. Just outside the Imperial prison is a grating that leads to the sewers. It has recently been tightly locked, but I will provide a key. It should be easy enough to locate Dreth in his small cell. Besides, I think you know the way, Valen Dreth has been imprisoned for many years. His tongue is sharp, but his body is limp and frail. He will prove an easy, pleasurable kill. You will receive a bonus if you fulfill the contract without killing any of the prison guards. Now go, and may the Night Mother go with you.
This contract has a delicious irony, as Valen Dreth is actually the snarky Dunmer prisoner from the tutorial of the game who taunted the player in the adjacent cell. Many players, I'm sure, would take great pleasure in repaying Dreth's insults with cold steel, making this quest a bit of a personal vendetta sanctioned by the Brotherhood. From a design perspective, reusing the prison is a clever bit of narrative symmetry and fan service. The quest is a classic prison break-in, akin to stories where a character must sneak into a fortress. It brings to mind Alexandre Dumas's The Count of Monte Cristo, but in reverse. Edmond Dantes escapes prison, but here you infiltrate to kill someone in prison. There's also the elements of a spy thriller, a covert operative penetrating a high-security area to eliminate a target. The concept of silencing a prisoner implies Valen Dreth perhaps knows too much, or someone outside wants him dead before he talks. This is, of course, a common trope in crime fiction. Think of movies where a mob boss sends hitmen to kill a witness in custody. Influence-wise, given that we know of Emil Pagliarulo's obsession with stealth games and mechanics, that's clearly there once again, and if you manage to sneak past all the guards without killing any, you receive a bonus for the quest. And while it's not overtly stated, one could imagine cultural inspiration from the real-life Tower of London intrigue. In English history, there were cases of imprisoned nobles mysteriously dying in custody, often assassinated to prevent their release. Valen Dreth is, as far as we know, no noble, but the idea of clandestine prison murders has historical precedent. Even the thuggy cult connection we looked at earlier involved prisoners and false imprisonment at times, although here it's more straightforward. The quest itself shows that the Brotherhood has, or can have, eyes and ears everywhere, even in the heart of the Empire's prison. It's a show of their reach and the weakness of so-called secure institutions. It resonates with conspiratorial literature where secret societies can penetrate even the strongest walls, a bit like the Scarlet Pimpernel stories, where agents get in and out of Bastille-like prisons, albeit the Pimpernel was heroic, while we are the opposite. Anyway, upon executing Valen quietly or violently, up to you, you can escape via the sewers, or you can use pilfered keys to walk out the front door. Completing Scheduled for Execution feels like a satisfying dark parody of the game's beginning. From a dramatic standpoint, it's like the protagonist's shadow. You started as a prisoner escaping, now you're a free killer infiltrating. That narrative rhyme has a literary elegance that players like myself certainly appreciated. Following the prison escapade, the Brotherhood serves up a markedly different contract with the assassinated man. Here you are asked not to kill a target, but to help someone else, a man named Francois Motier, fake their own death. It's a clever twist. The Brotherhood has been hired by Motier to assassinate him, essentially to get him out of a tight situation by convincing everyone he's dead. Your task is to stage an attempt on his life and ensure he appears convincingly murdered to onlookers while actually spiriting him away.
I have a special contract that needs fulfillment. In truth, I don't wish to offer it to any other family member. I've come to rely on your abilities. We're usually called upon to take a life, but not this time. This contract requires us to stage the assassination of a marked man. Are you ready? You must go to the city of Coral and break into the house of Francois Mortieri. Inside you will find Mortieri waiting for you. Do not kill him. You see, Francois Mortieri is a marked man. He owes a considerable sum to the wrong kind of people, so they have sent an enforcer to kill him. Here, you will use this specially poisoned knife to stage Mortieri's death in the enforcer's presence. Mortieri himself will provide more details. This is an unusual contract. Mortieri had to make a special arrangement with us before it was approved. I trust in your professionalism.
This quest stands out as it temporarily puts you in the role of a protector in a very twisted sense, and it draws heavily on tropes of feigned death in literature. Faking one's death is a classic plot device. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet famously has Juliet take a potion to appear dead, a plan which tragically misfires. In Mortier's case, the plan succeeds better for now. Another strong parallel is Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes story The Adventure of the Empty House, where Holmes reveals he faked his death at Reichenbach to trick his enemies. Likewise, Francois Mortier hopes to escape his enemies or debts, etc. by dying. From a philosophical point of view, the assassinated man is about illusion and identity. You, as the assassin, become a stage director of sorts, choreographing a faux murder. It's very theatrical. You meet Mortier, give him a special poison to induce a death-like coma, then ambush him in front of a witness. This witness sees you kill Mortier with a blade, but the poison makes him appear dead. You flee, leaving the witness convinced of his death. Later, Mortier is covertly revived and escapes into hiding. In many ways, it's assassination as performance art. This calls to mind the concept of mummers' plays or staged deaths in drama. In some mystery novels, characters stage their own murder to frame someone. Agatha Christie toyed with that idea in a few cases. Here, however, the Brotherhood is complicit in the ruse for payment. It's another example of the Brotherhood not being mere butchers. They are problem solvers in the criminal underworld, akin to a Murder Incorporated that provides any service related to killing, even fake killing. Mythologically, faking death has parallels to resurrection myths. Osiris pieced back together, or Jesus' empty tomb. Of course, here it's all trickery, not divine. But interestingly, the Night Mother herself in lore is essentially a corpse that isn't truly gone, a spirit still active. Mortier's fake death is a bit of a mundane echo of that idea. Death isn't always what it seems in the world of the Elder Scrolls. In terms of Brotherhood philosophy, helping someone simulate death might be seen as a lesser heresy. No soul is actually sent to Sithis, yet the Brotherhood takes the contract because ultimately gold speaks louder than doctrine at times. Next up, we have a contract whose quest is titled The Lonely Wanderer. As this title suggests, the quest involves a solitary target, a high elf named Phalion who lives a melancholy, skooma-addicted life with only his girlfriend, who seemingly is quite wealthy and pays for all his needs, and other more unsavoury characters. Your task is to eliminate him, with a bonus condition to do it somewhere isolated, indoors with no witnesses.
In the Imperial City, there lives a high elf who must be removed from existence. Finding this person may prove challenging. Are you interested? I knew you wouldn't be able to resist. Your target is a high elf named Phalion. He lives somewhere in the Imperial City and fancies long walks. Unfortunately, that's all we know. We don't know which district he calls home, which establishments he frequents, or anything about his schedule. This contract will require a bit of detective work. I suggest you speak to your fellow brothers and sisters and see if they can offer any advice. Ah, yes, there is one more thing. The Imperial City is also home to an Imperial Legion captain named Adamus Philida. Do you know who that is? Philida has dedicated his life to eradicating the Dark Brotherhood. and he becomes rather irate when our duties take us to the Imperial City. When that happens, he tends to make our lives uncomfortable. Let's not give the good captain any reason to go poking around in our affairs, If possible, do away with Phalion someplace out of the way. Definitely indoors with no other people around. A secure location with no witnesses. This will make it look like a simple murder. Philida will be none the wiser, and you'll receive a nice bonus. Now go, and may Sithis go with you.
This quest's emotional tone is somber, given the fact that Phalion is a skooma addict whose life has fallen apart and he wanders in a pathetic state. Unlike the juicy drama of earlier contracts, the Lonely Wanderer has a feeling of inevitability about it, almost a mercy kill. In terms of influences, this scenario resonates with themes of the tragic drifter in literature. Phalion's tale, revealed through optional exploration, is that of a man from a good family who succumbed to addiction and lost everything, now spending his days in a stupor. To find and end him, you have a couple of methods. You can follow him to the abandoned house, Lorkmere's, in the Elven Gardens district. He goes there to indulge his skooma habit. There, he can be taken out. Or you can get the key for Lorkmere's house from Phalion in exchange for skooma and then lie in wait for him there. In any case, by dispatching Phalion, you ironically fulfill the wish for an ending he might subconsciously harbour. It's a bleak kind of assassination, more akin to something from a noir film where a hitman is sent to put a miserable soul out of their misery. One can imagine a Raymond Chandler character saying, "He was a dead man walking, I just gave him a push." And beyond that, the title The Lonely Wanderer itself is almost poetic. It recalls The Wanderer, an Old English elegiac poem about a solitary exile reflecting on his fate. Phalion similarly is a lonely figure among strangers. The quest doesn't explicitly cite that poem, but the thematic overlap is there, the decay of a man alone. Philosophically, the Brotherhood's involvement in such a sad story underscores their role as agents of fate. Phalion's destiny seemed grim anyway. The Brotherhood contract makes his literal end a paid service. In a mythic sense, it's as if Atropos, the fate who cuts the thread, has subcontracted the job to you. As mentioned earlier, executing Phalion in private in the Flophouse room meets the bonus condition and completes the contract. When you report back, the Brotherhood treats it as business as usual, but as a player you might feel this kill was less satisfying or just less theatrical than the others, and that's a narrative strength. Not every kill in this questline is meant to be glorious. Some are pitiable, reflecting on the wretchedness of mortality.
The High Elf Phalion now swims in the maelstrom of darkness at the feet of our dread father, Sithis, and there were no witnesses to your handiwork. Because of the discretion you exercised, Captain Philida will not suspect the Dark Brotherhood was involved and will not meddle in our affairs. Here is your reward and bonus. Both have been well earned. Go now and rest, and may the Night Mother guard your dreams.
Continuing the variety show of murder methods, the bad medicine contract has you employ poison to take out a target. You are sent to Fort Such to assassinate a savage Redguard knight named Roderick, the leader of a band of mercenaries. But instead of direct combat, the Brotherhood's client requests a more insidious approach. Roderick is ill, bedridden, and taking a daily medicine. You are to sneak into the fort and poison his medicine, turning his cure into a toxin.
I have another contract when you're ready, one that will rely on your ability to remain fully undetected. Far to the west, there lives a fierce warlord and his company of loyal mercenaries. Your target is the warlord. Do you accept this contract? Excellent. Now listen closely. Nestled in the mountains to the west lies Fort Such. It is the home of the warlord Roderick and his mercenaries. Roderick has recently taken ill. He now lies in eternal slumber, kept alive only by the daily administration of a powerful medicine. You must infiltrate Fort Such, find Roderick's medicine, and replace it with a poisoned bottle I will provide. but you must remain undetected. Whomever arranged this contract wants it to look like Roderick died from his illness, so discretion is essential. Attack no one. Be seen by no one. If you are detected, the poisoning will fail, and Roderick must be killed in some other manner. That will, of course, forfeit your bonus.
Bad Medicine is a straightforward title, a common phrase, and even a Bon Jovi song, and it puns on the idea of medicine that harms rather than heals. This quest is steeped in the tradition of poisonings in literature and history. From the Borgias of Renaissance Italy to countless kings and popes, many have met their end by poison administered in food or drink. The scenario here specifically mirrors historical assassinations like the rumoured poisoning of Alexander the Great, or more directly the attempted poisoning of Rasputin, though he survived the initial attempt. There's also a nod to the archetypal poisoned chalice that appears in Shakespeare, e.g. Hamlet's poisoned cup intended for Hamlet but taken by his mother. While Roderick's dose is in medicine form, the concept is the same. Another clear inspiration could be the Hitman games yet again, where swapping a target's medicine or drink for poison is a classic tactic. Pagliarulo and his team undoubtedly knew how satisfying it would be for a player to kill without direct confrontation, by intellect rather than brawn. Philosophically, using poison is considered a coward's weapon or the weapon of schemers in historical stereotypes due to it being indirect and requiring no physical strength. The Brotherhood has no such scruples. To them, poison is just another tool of Sithis. As we know, one of the Sanctuary mates, Telendro, specialises in poisons. We can see in this quest the channeling of what in real history was the female-dominated art of poisoning. Think of Lucrezia Borgia or Catherine de' Medici, rumoured to poison rivals. It certainly adds a cunning touch to the Brotherhood's methods. Executing this contract is satisfying. You infiltrate the fort, locate the medicine bottle in Roderick's quarters, replace it with the poison. If done right, you leave without ever drawing your blade on the target. Shortly after, Roderick drinks his medicine and dies off-screen, an assassin's ideal outcome. No fight, target eliminated. When you return, the Brotherhood mentors praise the elegance of the kill.
Ah, so you infiltrated Fort Such, remained undetected, and replaced the medicine with the poison I provided. You are truly a master of shadow. It pleases me greatly to offer you this reward and a well-earned bonus. Go now, rest. I'll have another contract ready whenever you are.
Bad Medicine might remind savvy players of the idiom to give someone a dose of their own medicine. While Roderick wasn't a poisoner himself, he was a violent mercenary. Fate had him die by something meant to heal. It's ironic and thematically consistent with the Brotherhood's penchant for karmic kills. In classical myth, one could liken it to Heracles' death. He put on a robe poisoned with the blood of the Hydra, thanks to Deianira's unwitting trick, expecting relief and instead got deadly agony. Roderick's fate is somewhat parallel, trusting a remedy, receiving doom. After this mission, it's clear the Brotherhood quests are escalating in creativity, but nothing quite prepares the player for the next contract, which is arguably one of the most famous quests in Elder Scrolls history, laced with literary inspiration. The quest Whodunit is widely hailed as the crown jewel of Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood missions. The premise is tantalising. 5 guests are invited to a manor house party, and you, the 6th person, masquerading as another guest, must kill every one of them. The twist? None of the guests know that a murderer is in their midst, and ideally, you should eliminate them one by one without any of the others catching on, turning the whole affair into a reverse murder mystery.
Do you like parties? Because you've been invited to one. Of course, you'll be killing all the other guests. Are you ready to attend? Splendid. You need to go to the city of Skingrad, to the large house known as Summit Mist Manor. There, you will meet up with 5 very unlucky guests. In order to receive your bonus, you must kill each guest secretly, one by one. If anyone sees you committing murder, the bonus is forfeit. The guests believe there is a chest of gold hidden in the house, and have agreed to be locked inside until one of them finds it. In fact, the guests believe the key to the manor is inside the chest, and only by satisfying their greed will they be allowed to leave. Poor fools. There is, of course, no chest of gold. The guests will find no key. After you arrive, the doors will be locked behind you, as everyone expects. When all the guests lie dead, you will be free to leave. Now go. See the doorman at Summit Miss Manor. He will explain the rest. Have fun.
The title Whodunit is a direct reference to the classic term for a mystery story where the identity of the murderer is unknown. Here, wonderfully, you are the murderer, and the victims are desperately trying to figure out who among them is picking them off. A complete inversion of the typical detective formula. The influences on Whodunit are crystal clear. While we've touched upon references to this before, it is essentially Oblivion's loving homage to Agatha Christie, particularly her famous novel And Then There Were None. In that 1939 novel, one of the best-selling mysteries of all time, 10 people are lured to an island under false pretenses and are killed one by an unseen justice seeker among them, with the survivors growing increasingly paranoid and accusatory until none are left. The setup in Oblivion is almost identical in structure. Various guests with checkered pasts are invited by a mysterious host to a mansion called Summit Mist Manor, ostensibly for an inheritance game, but in truth as targets for assassination. As the bodies start to fall, the remaining NPCs react with panic, suspicion, and attempts to band together or isolate, exactly as Christie's characters do. It's not even a subtle influence, it's basically And Then There Were None turned interactive. Bethesda surely expected players who knew the novel to smile in recognition. Even those unfamiliar with Christie intuitively get the trope, since it's been echoed in films like Clue, which came out in 1985, itself a comedic take on a mansion murder mystery, and countless detective TV shows. Circling back to the Agatha Christie connection, it's worth noting that Bethesda likely took inspiration from a specific adaptation. While there was a 1945 film of And Then There Were None, which is well regarded, more directly as an influence I think, there was a 1986 computer game adaptation of the story. However, the theorising about this connection comes from the player commentary. Multiple sources, including in-game trivia and fans, explicitly note the Agatha Christie influence. The developers themselves, while not publicly quoted on it, clearly planted this Easter egg for the literate gamer. Another likely influence is the general genre of the locked room mystery, or rather the closed circle mystery, where a fixed group in an isolated location means the murderer must be one of them. Famous examples beyond Christie include the film Murder by Death, which came out in 1976, which parodied such scenarios with multiple detective archetypes. The Clue or Cluedo board game also springs to mind. A mansion, multiple guests, murders happening. In Oblivion, however, there is no detective, only the perpetrator, you, and the gradually diminishing pool of victims. It's a brilliantly subversive twist for anyone who's ever consumed a whodunit and wondered, what if I got to be the killer instead of the sleuth? The quest's execution is a masterclass in both narrative and game design. Each guest has a distinct personality and set of suspicions. They start in a jovial, if awkward mood, making small talk about the promised treasure.
The sixth guest has finally arrived. Well, it's about time. Do you know how long we've been waiting? It seems like an age. Whoever invited us here must at least know us, don't you think? In any event, we're all stuck here together, so we might as well get acquainted. The rest of us have already traded introductions. I'm Matilda Petite. The others are Nels the Naughty, Neville, Dovisi Dran, and Primo Antonius. Now, who might you be? Please, tell us a little bit about yourself. Yes, well, anyway, now that we're all here, I guess we can start looking. I'd wish you good luck, but I wouldn't really mean it.
As you, the player, start secretly murdering them, the survivors' dialogues change. They begin to accuse each other. We can't trust that one, he was alone with so-and-so before they died. They might even ask you to stick together for safety. The dramatic irony is delicious. You can feign innocence all the while plotting who to take out next when an opportunity presents. It feels as if you are simultaneously the killer in a slasher film and the audience watching the classic horror trope of victims being picked off. Indeed, there are echoes of slasher movies like Friday the 13th or Halloween, where a group, camp counselors, teens, etc., are stalked by an unseen killer. The difference is those killers are external, whereas here the killer is posing as one of them, like in Scream or The Thing. And you really should watch The Thing. The film, made by John Carpenter, came out in 1982, and even though it's sci-fi, it absolutely shares the premise of an imposter picking people off in an isolated base with paranoia mounting. Whodunit absolutely captures that vibe too. From a philosophical angle, Whodunit is an exercise in deception and psychology. The quest encourages you to manipulate the trust and mistrust of the NPCs. You can, for example, murder one guest in a side room quietly. When another NPC finds the body, they might assume someone else who had been feuding with the victim openly is the culprit. You can even lead one guest to another's corpse to fuel their terror. The guests start forming alliances. One might confide in you, suspecting another. In essence, you're orchestrating not just murders, but the mental breakdown of a group. It's genuinely sadistic in concept, harkening to literature like William Golding's Lord of the Flies. People reverting to paranoia and savagery when death lurks and law is gone, albeit condensed into a single evening in one house. For me, Whodunit was probably the moment I fell in love with the Dark Brotherhood questline the first time around. It turns the familiar on its head. Instead of solving a murder mystery, you create one. It's also a rare instance in gaming where you are incentivized to be stealthy and patient as a showcase of game mechanics, sure, but it's also for story impact. The better you play the part of innocent, the more narrative content you see, the frightened conversations. If you just barge in and slaughter everyone with a sword, you complete the quest but miss the delicious unfolding drama. Thus, the quest rewards restraint and theatricality, much like an actor in a play. By the end of Whodunit, you've killed all 5 guests with none alive to tell the tale, making you essentially a one-person equivalent of the entire plot of And Then There Were None. In Christie's novel, the killer even ends up dying via unaliving to leave a perfect mystery. Here you, the killer, walk away scot-free, which is less poetic but more pragmatic for an assassin. And so, after the high of Whodunit, one more standard contract arrives: permanent retirement. The very title drips with euphemism. It's a darkly witty way to say assassination, often used in spy thrillers to describe killing someone to retire them from life. The target here is Adamus Philida, a retired Imperial Legion commander who once dedicated his life to hunting the Dark Brotherhood. He's essentially an old warhorse enjoying his pensioned days in the city of Leowin. The Brotherhood, ever vengeful, has taken a contract to eliminate this aged soldier who thought he'd escaped their wrath. The Brotherhood provides you with a special token, an arrow called the Rose of Sithis, which can kill in one hit, but only if Philida is not wearing his full set of Imperial Watch armor.
Greetings once more, Assassin. When you're ready, I have a most important contract, one that has been sanctioned by the Black Hand itself. Do you recall the name Adamus Philida? The Imperial Legion best? It's time he joined Sithis in the Void. Think you're up to the task? Adamus Philida has spent his entire career investigating the Dark Brotherhood, interrupting our contracts, killing our family members. We tried to eliminate Philida, of course, but failed on 3 separate occasions. He's a powerful man, and was surrounded by powerful associates. Now the Legion Pig's years of service have come to an end. He has retired. Philida must not be allowed such a victory. His destiny is darker. Philida now resides in Leowin, in the City Watch Barracks, an honored guest of the soldiers there. He is in fact more vulnerable than ever. Yes, yes, the Black Hand has sanctioned the Rose of Sithis. It is an enchanted arrow that will kill Philida instantly. As long as the arrow hits Philida, he will die, but it cannot pierce armor. Shoot while Philida is armored, and the rose will be wasted. Travel to Leowin, track Philida, learn his schedule. Observe when he removes that blasted Legion armor, and then let fly the Rose of Sithis. Kill Philida in any way, rose or not, and the contract is complete. But to receive a bonus, you must go beyond murder. You must send a message. Once Philida is dead, sever his finger, the one that bears an Imperial Legion's signet ring. Deposit this finger in the desk of Philida's successor, in his office in the prison barracks, in the Imperial City. Do this, and the bonus is yours.
The mission strongly encourages a dramatic moment. Shoot Philida with the poisoned arrow while he's relaxing in the city pond, as he does daily, thus ending him in one swift strike. Then, as proof of the deed, you must sever his finger with his signet ring on, still, and place it in a desk in the Imperial City as a message. This adds a gruesome detail that feels very Mafia hit in style, leaving a piece of the victim as a calling card. Influence-wise, permanent retirement clearly nods to the idea of criminals settling old scores with lawmen. It's almost cinematic, the aging cop who thought he got away suddenly taken out by the very underworld he fought. There's a parallel to the Mafia taking such revenge, an episode of The Sopranos called For All Debts, Public and Private, where Christopher Moltisanti kills a cop who's just retired. He's been told the cop killed his father, but there's also a suspicion the cop has outlived his usefulness. Another influence is historical revenge killings, when Stalin's agents assassinated Trotsky in exile with an ice pick to the head. Talk about permanent retirement. Philida, while not politically exiled, is metaphorically put out to pasture and then slain in a way that sends shockwaves. The Brotherhood can reach even a former high official. In fact, within the Elder Scrolls lore, this is significant. Philida was a hero for persecuting the Brotherhood. His death would send a message of "None escape the Black Hand." The instruction to retrieve his finger evokes the real-world Yakuza practice of severing fingers as punishment or proof. It also echoes the trope in crime dramas of sending someone a finger or ear to prove a hostage is taken out. Another layer to this aspect, placing the finger in a desk at the Imperial City Barracks, is a taunt. It's leaving evidence specifically to let the authorities know who did this, or at least that the Brotherhood did. That's pure bravado, akin to how the Zodiac Killer sent letters to police. It fits the Brotherhood's persona as both secretive and theatrical. We get the sense the Brotherhood is checking off a hit list of those who's wronged them. Adam as Philida is basically the Inspector Javert to their collective Jean Valjean. To draw a Les Miserables parallel, relentless law chasing the criminal. But unlike Javert, Philida doesn't get to off himself. We do it for him, ironically just when he thought duty was over. This quest could also be seen as a triumph for the Brotherhood before everything turns a bit darker. After completing it, the story of the Dark Brotherhood takes a sudden, bloody turn inward. You have been thoroughly congratulated on all your successful kills. You've ascended the ranks, proven your worth. You likely feel untouchable, the ultimate assassin, and that is exactly when the betrayal arc strikes. The transition quest of Secret and Shadow may occur around this point, setting the stage for the betrayal that's been brewing. Up until now, the quests have all been external targets, but the Dark Brotherhood's influences aren't just external literature and history. It's about to mirror one of the oldest themes in stories of secret societies: the enemy within. The next major story beat is the notorious purification of the Cheydinhal Sanctuary. a quest that forces you to kill the very family you've grown to know. This marks the narrative turning point from celebratory assassin romps to a tragic internal drama, and it draws on influences from sources as varied as Julius Caesar to The Godfather Part 2. Before we proceed, think again of that quest title Permanent Retirement. It could almost foreshadow what the Black Hand is about to do to your own sanctuary. Retire everyone. As we enter that phase, the mythological and pop cultural resonance deepens even further. So, to recap what's happened so far. Having carried out a string of high-profile murders across Cyrodiil, the player's assassin has risen in favour within the Dark Brotherhood. During the Of Secret and Shadow transition quest mentioned earlier, Ocheeva tells you that there's a letter for you from Lucien.
Ah, assassin, I must speak with you. It is quite urgent. A sealed letter just arrived from a Dark Brotherhood courier. I recognize this type of parcel. It contains sealed orders. It's addressed to you from Lucien Lachance. You must open these sealed orders immediately and follow their instructions to the letter. It would seem the Black Hand itself has a task for you. Assassin, why are you still here? Have you not opened your sealed orders? Go, now. The Black Hand obviously has need of your abilities.
It would seem the Black Hand has a task for you. You've to head out to see Lucien at Fort Farragut. And suddenly, just like that, the narrative pivots inward. Lucien appears again in the flesh, but this time his directives are dire. There is a traitor somewhere within the Brotherhood, a betrayal so severe that the Black Hand, in its wrath and paranoia, has ordered a purification.
I have been waiting for you, assassin. We have not spoken in some time, but I am well aware of your accomplishments within the Dark Brotherhood. That is why I have sent for you. I'm afraid there is a situation. The time has come to test both your skill and your loyalty to Sithis. The Black Hand has learned that the Dark Brotherhood has been infiltrated. By whom and for what purpose, we do not yet know. What we do know is that there is some link between the traitor and the Cheydinhal sanctuary. The traitor has tainted that place beyond repair. It was learned that the traitor has been active for quite some time, since before you joined the Brotherhood. That absolves you of any suspicion. Listen well, child of Sithis. You have been chosen to perform the ancient rite known as purification. Everyone inside the sanctuary must die. You must break one of the tenets you have sworn to uphold. I know, this is an unexpected turn of events, but drastic measures must be taken. Ocheeva, Vicente Valtieri, Antoinette Marie, Gogron Grobalmag, Talendril, Mirage Dar, and Teinaava. All these family members must die. From this point forward, you are no longer bound by the 5 tenets. Sithis will forgive any murder, any theft, so long as you serve the Black Hand. When the rite of purification has been completed, return to me here at Fort Farragut, and we will discuss your future. Now, take these special gifts. They will help you greatly. One is a poisoned apple, the other, a unique scroll of summoning. Good luck, Silencer.
Essentially an internal purge. And here is where the story turns Shakespearean. Lachance informs you that the corruption is believed to stem from your very home base, the Cheydinhal Sanctuary. The solution? You are to wipe out every member of your sanctuary family, all those brothers and sisters who welcomed and befriended you. Innocent or guilty, it matters not. Sithis will know his own. This quest, aptly titled The Purification, forces you to become the agent of the Brotherhood's self-cleansing, echoing some of the darkest moments from history and fiction where trust is shattered from within. The influences on this plot twist are multifaceted. On one hand, it channels the real-world phenomena of organisational purges, from the paranoid purges of Stalin in the 1930s to the Night of the Long Knives in 1934. In such events, loyal members of a faction were slaughtered on the slightest suspicion of disloyalty to purify the group's core. The Dark Brotherhood's purification is exactly that logic, terrifying, absolute, and perhaps misguided. In this case, the Brotherhood is following that ruthless tradition to the letter. In literature, this is akin to the turning point in many a tragedy where comrades turn on comrades. One might think of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, where Caesar's close friends, the Senate conspirators, assassinate him for what they claim is the good of Rome, a purification of the body politic. But in our case, you are Brutus and Cassius combined, stabbing not just one leader but an entire circle of colleagues. There's also a resemblance to the climax of Shakespeare's Hamlet, where a bloody cascade of mutual slaughters ends up purifying the Danish court of its corrupt elements, albeit coincidentally. The quest also has strong echoes of The Godfather Part 2, where Michael Corleone eliminates his own brother Fredo, the ultimate act of familial betrayal in the name of safeguarding the family. The heartbreak of being ordered to kill those who called you brother and sister resonates with these classic tales of fratricide and betrayal. The Sanctuary members who earlier seemed quirky and affable now become tragic victims by your hand. For instance, Vicente Valtieri remarks about the mission Lucien has given you. LeChance would not have selected you for a contract unless he had the utmost confidence in your abilities. Best not let him down. Not knowing that you're about to end his centuries-long undead life. It's dramatic irony at its peak and very much in line with Greek tragedy where the audience knows the fate but the characters do not. You might recall Oedipus declaring the murderer of Laius will be exiled, not knowing it's himself. Here you know you're the executioner but they do not. It's gut-wrenching in the same way a tragic play is. Influential too is the idea of a betrayer in the ranks. This traitor subplot evokes classic whodunit and thriller tropes. Who is the mole? But at this stage, you as player have no clue who it is, only that you must obey and slaughter everyone. There's a parallel with John le Carre's spy novel Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, where a mole in MI6 triggers paranoia. If whodunit was an Agatha Christie murder mystery externalised, The Purification is an inside job thriller/horror. It also feels reminiscent of horror films like John Carpenter's The Thing again. At the end, trust is gone and anyone could be the monster, so everyone must die. The Brotherhood's solution is essentially to burn the village to save it. Carrying out the purification is often an emotionally conflicting gameplay moment. These NPCs weren't antagonistic, they were your comrades. Killing them one by one in the dark sanctuary halls, which now feel tomb-like, can be disturbingly intimate. The term purification itself smacks of religious zeal, for example the Spanish Inquisition purging heretics, or even fictional purges like those in Warhammer 40k's grim dark lore. The Brotherhood sees this as a necessary sacrifice to restore spiritual purity, a concept found in many extremist ideologies. With the deed done, you return to LeChance effectively baptised in the blood of your own. He inducts you into the Black Hand as Silencer, his personal enforcer, a promotion earned at terrible cost.
The ritual of purification is complete. Well done. Sithis has been appeased, and the time has come to acknowledge and reward your unwavering loyalty. The Black Hand is most pleased with your progress. You have been invited to share in secrets that few within the Dark Brotherhood even know exist. Your life in the Sanctuary is over. Those contracts are behind you. Now, you will serve the Black Hand. You will serve me. From this moment forward, you will walk in the shadows as my Silencer. You will receive contracts only from me. Your new life has begun. Listen well, child. No longer will you receive orders directly. Instead, you will visit dead drop locations scattered throughout Cyrodiil. Your next contract can be found at the Dead Drop on Hero Hill, southeast of here. A hollow in the moss-covered rock contains all you need to know. When you leave here, we'll not speak again, unless I deem it necessary. Ah, yes. There is one last thing. I have for you a very special gift. Waiting just outside is a magnificent steed named Shadowmere. She has served me well. I present her now to you, as a token of my trust and love. Now go, and may Sithis guide you in this new stage of your life's dark journey.
This is one of the darkest points in the story. The Brotherhood, once a family, is now a shattered remnant. Symbolically, it's like a The Empire Strikes Back moment. The heroes, in our twisted case the assassins, are in disarray. Evil, the traitor, has struck a blow, and all is uncertain. For the player, it's a complex feeling, pride at advancement, but perhaps guilt or sadness at the slaughter. The quest is so impactful that many players cite it as the moment they truly felt the gravity of being in a cult of killers. Narratively, this sets the stage for the final arc, unmasking the traitor and restoring the Brotherhood's order by exacting vengeance. The betrayal arc from here on plays out like a blend of murder mystery and horror thriller, and we will ultimately see a resolution that is both grisly and cathartic. For now, with the purification done, the Brotherhood has cut off a limb to remove a poison, not realising perhaps that the poison wasn't in that limb at all. The stage is set for a confrontation with the real villain. It's a good moment to pause and reflect on how myth and media have handled such inside betrayals. Often, after the purge, the truth comes to light too late and with great cost. This will hold true here as well. In the aftermath of the purification, the Dark Brotherhood's leadership is reeling. You, as the killer of your sanctuary family, are now thrust into the higher echelons as Lucien Lechance's silencer. The next sequence of quests involves following dead drop orders, instructions left at secret locations, to continue fulfilling contracts for what remains of the Brotherhood leadership. But unknown to you at first, this is where the traitor's machinations are in full swing. But we will explore that in more detail later. The dead drop missions themselves, on the surface, are a set of contracts akin to what you've done before, but in some cases less elaborate than the earlier ones. Some of them seem routine: kill a necromancer, kill a reclusive old woman, whereas there are others that have a bit more meat to the bone, so to speak. Next of Kin is a great example of this. This is a particularly dark contract. You systematically hunt down every member of the Draconis family one by one across the map. It's essentially an assignment of family annihilation. This resonates disturbingly with true crime cases of family wipeouts, albeit usually done by a member of the family or a spree killer. Here it's an outsider, you, doing it methodically. In literature and film, it recalls The Godfather again. The end of part 1 has the Corleone hitmen executing the heads of rival families in parallel. Here, one person, you, is the hitman for an entire family line. The family members, as far as you're concerned, are innocent and scattered, which gives a chilling feeling of relentless inevitability, death coming to each door. The trope of the sins of one visited upon all kin might be in play. Perhaps one of them angered someone, so the whole lineage is marked. This is an old world style vendetta. In some cultures, feuds resulted in extermination of all male kin to prevent retaliation. The emotional effect is also akin to a slasher sequel. You're picking off related victims one after the other. If whodunit was "and then there were none," Next of Kin is like a grim series of vignettes, each a small tragedy. There's almost a perverse Greek tragedy element. The House of Draconis falls completely, reminiscent of the cursed house of Atreus or similar myths where an entire family is doomed. Now, through the Dead Drop quests, something interesting happens metatextually. Astute players might notice the pattern or weirdness. Why are we killing seemingly random people, many of whom have no obvious connection except perhaps to someone's revenge? The targets are not particularly high-value contracts for the Brotherhood's gain. They seem personal. This might ping the player's suspicion. The entire time, Lucien Lachance is out of contact. He leaves orders via dead drops. It just seems a bit iffy, doesn't it? Anyway, the next notable dead drop quest is titled A Kiss Before Dying, which lifts its name directly from Ira Levin's 1953 novel, where a charming sociopath murders his pregnant girlfriend to protect his ambitions, then later seduces her sister. The parallels may seem slightly obscure, but I think they're deliberate. In Oblivion, the kiss is the final contract in a long string of assassinations carried out through dead drops, and the final victim is Ungolum, someone who is more important than the player may realise. The symbolic weight of the title is sharp, an intimate gesture moments before betrayal and death. The method you use to deliver to Ungolum his demise is the kiss before dying, and it's not just a clever reference. It signals the end of your unwitting role as an executioner of something that you are just about to find out, because these were no normal Brotherhood contracts. After Ungolum dies, Lucien Lachance finally appears in person, panicked and enraged. He believes he's arrived in time to stop you, the agent he trusted, from completing the final betrayal. But when you respond, he sees the confusion on your face, and the truth emerges. You've been killing fellow Black Hand members all along. Jagasta, Chalice, Alval Vani, Havelstein Whoreblood, and now Ungolum himself. Not enemies, not contracts, colleagues, superiors, and you had no idea. That's because the dead drops weren't being filled by Lachance at all, they were being intercepted. Lachance tasks you with finding out the truth, finding out who had been changing the dead drops. Until the truth surfaces, he hides at Apple Watch Farm, waiting for you to come with news. When you finally catch up with the courier in Anvil, Enelroth, the frightened errand boy who's been delivering your dead drop orders, he panics immediately, starts stammering about a robed man, says he never meant harm, that he was approached near the lighthouse. The man's face was hidden, voice low, but he paid Enelroth to place those items in the barrel. No names, just shadows and coin. Pressed further, Enelroth reveals more. The man had been living at Anvil Lighthouse, apparently in the cellar, and left town recently. There's something off about that place, he says, a stench leaking out from beneath the door, like something died inside. It's not metaphor. Speaking to the lighthouse keeper, Ulfgar Fogeye, and the tone shifts from vague dread to blunt revulsion. He flat out encourages you to go down there and kill whoever's inside. He's heard the screams, smelled the rot, unnatural things, he mutters, full of regret. Should never have rented it out. Won't be calling the guards. He knows something's been festering under his floorboards, and when you descend, it's exactly that. The cellar is pure desecration. Flies crawl over decomposing animal carcasses, human limbs are strewn across the dirt floor, some stuffed into corners, others bizarrely posed, atop barrels and cupboards. A naked corpse, name unknown, lies slumped in the corner like a discarded object. A crazed dog, barely alive, rushes at you, deranged by whatever it's seen or been fed. And at the back, the heart of it all, sits the traitor's shrine. The decapitated head of Mother, rotting, propped ceremoniously on a pedestal and ringed with lit candles. Then there's the poem, scribbled confession or manifesto, written in unbroken rhyme, childish in tone, murderous in content. The voice of Mathieu Bellamont finally revealed, a child watching his mother die, a boy who grew up worshipping the moment of her murder, and who swore as he hid under the bed and stared into the severed face of the woman who raised him that he'd one day destroy the Brotherhood in return. It wasn't about contracts or power, it was revenge, plain and personal, and it began with his father's beating heart. Then the rest of the Black Hand, then presumably Lucien Lachance, and the Night Mother herself. Bellamont is one of the 4 surviving members of the Black Hand and has been right there the whole time, feigning loyalty. He's been biding his time, climbing the ranks and manipulating the Brotherhood from within to bring about its collapse. He's the one who intercepted LeChance's orders, replacing them with his own false contracts, carefully selecting targets that would dismantle the Black Hand from the inside out. Your role? You were his weapon. LeChance, in the meantime, became the scapegoat, his distance and secretive methods making him the perfect fall guy. But when you return to Apple Watch with the truth, Lucien is already dead, brutally mutilated, strung up and disemboweled by the very people he once served, Bellamont among them. The scene is grisly, cult-like, almost ritualistic, echoing public executions or horror cinema. It's a staged horror piece, blood, candles, mutilation, completely devoid of remorse. Bellamont calls the corpse a thing of beauty. The rest of the Black Hand, blind to his manipulation, congratulate themselves. Arquin even promotes you to Speaker, declaring the crisis resolved. They believe LeChance was the traitor, but the real traitor is standing beside them. The surviving Black Hand members and the traitor Bellamont, still under cover, are present. This remainder of the Dark Brotherhood decide to hold a ceremony at the Night Mother's statue in Bravil to ask for guidance. This leads to the endgame Honour Thy Mother. During that climactic scene in the crypt beneath the lucky old lady statue, the Night Mother's spirit herself appears. Bellamont is revealed as the traitor and he attacks the Black Hand. You, alongside the remaining speakers, fight Bellamont in a final showdown.
What is the meaning of this desecration? Who has disturbed my ancient slumber?
Dearest Night Mother, most unholy maiden, please, we beg your mercy in this our time of need. The Black Hand seeks your guidance.
Ah, yes, I have been expecting you. The listener now kneels by Sithis, as does his successor. There is a traitor amongst you.
The traitor is dead, dear Mother. We have come now to ask your blessing. Anoint one of us your listener so we can restore the Black Hand.
Foolish little girl. Lucien LeChance served Sithis till his dying breath. The Black Hand remains tainted by betrayal. Restoration is impossible.
Enough. Enough of this. You will all suffer for the pain you have caused me. I will destroy your Night Mother, and the Dark Brotherhood will fall.
What treachery! The traitor still lives. It is Mathieu Bellamont. Do not let him harm the Night Mother. Kill him!
My whole life I have waited for this moment.
This ends here!
You're pathetic! Do your worst!
So, at last we meet. I have been following your strange journey through the Dark Brotherhood, young one. Your killing of the old man Bainland, the execution of Adamus Philida, the way you stalked and murdered each member of the Draconis family. Your purification of the Cheydinhal sanctuary. You, a mere underling, even managed to single-handedly eliminate half of my Black Hand. Ah, so you choose to play the stoic, hmm? You remain silent even when faced with my terrible countenance. Your silent obedience is to be commended. If only my other children had offered such reverence. You see, I have known of Mathieu Bellamont's intentions since he was just a boy. I knew of his thirst for vengeance. I could have informed my listener, but I refused. Refused to reward such incompetence. Ungol was weak. Indeed, I allowed Mathieu Bellamont to proceed on his destructive course, just as I allowed you to intercept him. Our dread father foresaw your defeat of the traitor here in this very crypt. You have been chosen. You are to be my new listener. You possess strength and cunning and a heart as black as midnight. You were marked by Sithis the moment you emerged from your mother's womb. Silent even as listener? Good. For now is the time to meditate upon all that has transpired. And please, help yourself to this crypt's treasures. When you are ready, speak with me again, and I will deliver you safely to the only place you can truly call home, the Cheydinhal Sanctuary. There is much work to be done. When you return to the Sanctuary, speak with Arquin. She will serve as your humble servant and guide.
The influences in this finale fuse mythology and horror, the vengeful spirit, the Night Mother appearing like an apparition of a goddess, reminiscent of when Athena appears at the end of the Odyssey to restore order among the feuding parties, the traitors unmasking like the villain's monologue moment in a mystery and a boss fight that's basically poetic justice, Bellamont raving about how the Brotherhood killed his mother. There's a flavour of Edgar Allan Poe in Bellamont's character, a man driven mad by a death in the family and infiltrating the murderers to exact revenge. Poe's short stories often deal with obsession and revenge. One could also cite The Cask of Amontillado, infiltration and meticulous vengeance in catacombs, which fits as we are indeed in a crypt for the finale. And the fact that Bellamont keeps his own mother's severed head is one of the darkest little details tucked into Oblivion's Brotherhood storyline, and it's not without precedent. It reads as a clear nod to Psycho's Norman Bates, whose obsession with his mother leads him to preserve her corpse and assume her identity. But it also fits into a wider horror tradition where maternal fixation curdles into madness. From Reanimator's talking heads to the grotesque family dynamics of Hereditary and Dead Alive. In Belmont's case, the severed head creepily suggests a lifetime of emotional dependence, trauma, or possibly reverence gone rotten. The final resolution, of course, is that Bellamont is killed, the Brotherhood's honour is purified truly now, and the Night Mother names you the new listener, the highest rank, meaning you alone hear the Night Mother's will. This is both triumphant and eerie. You've effectively replaced Ungolem, who you assassinated unknowingly. The Night Mother forgives all since it was part of weeding out the defector. It's a full circle moment. The Brotherhood lost its listener and nearly collapsed, but now gains a new listener in you, who ironically was the instrument of the purge and betrayal, but also the solver of it. The ending gives a nod towards redemption arcs in a twisted way. You unintentionally did wrong, killing the innocent former listener and others, but then you stop the true villain and inherit the seat, presumably to lead the Brotherhood more wisely. In terms of literary archetype, it's akin to the hero's journey, completion but in dark form. You descend into the underworld, quite literally into a crypt, face the shadow, a traitor, emerge transformed as the new leader, rebirth from assassin to listener. The listener concept itself, one who hears the whispers of a dead matron, has mythic echoes, like a prophet who communes with a deity in an inner sanctum. Think the Oracle of Delphi or Joan of Arc hearing voices. The game ending even allows you to listen at the Night Mother once a week to get new contracts, radiant minor quests labelled Whispers of Death, presumably. That phrase, Whispers of Death, as the coda is poetic, symbolising that the cycle of killing continues, now with you at the helm, hearing the soft susurrus of the Night Mother to direct the Brotherhood. With the traitor vanquished and the listener's seat filled, the Dark Brotherhood questline in Oblivion comes to a close. What began as a series of contracts grew into a tapestry of betrayal, fanaticism and revenge that drew upon countless literary and cultural threads. We journeyed from being the Brotherhood's novice executioner to becoming the listener, a figure as mythic as any high priest receiving whispers of a god. Along the way, we reenacted Agatha Christie mysteries, film noir intrigues, slasher film scares and Shakespearean tragedies, all under the grim blessing of Sithis. Looking at it in total, the Dark Brotherhood story in Oblivion can be seen as a dark morality play. It presented themes of loyalty and betrayal as vividly as Brutus and Caesar or Lancelot and Arthur, but set in a guild of murderers. The concept of family was perverted. The Brotherhood called each other brother and sister while routinely committing fratricide. This intentionally invokes the deepest taboos in myth, kinslaying like the biblical Cain and Abel or the tale of Romulus and Remus, one brother killing another to found Rome, an interesting parallel since you effectively found a reborn brotherhood after killing your siblings. The worship of Sithis and the Night Mother added a cosmic horror tint. Sithis, as an embodiment of the void, aligns with Lovecraftian worship of nothingness. And the Night Mother, the ghostly matron, is like a death goddess, Persephone or Hell, guiding her acolytes. The questline's arc could even be read as an allegory of faith. Lucien Lechance was essentially a zealot who never lost faith in Sithis or Yu, and was martyred unfairly. Yu, the convert, endured trials of faith, doubts during purification, being misled by false prophecies in the dead drops, and ultimately heard the direct voice of your deity, the Night Mother, vindicating everything. It's not unlike a twisted saint's journey, albeit one soaked in blood. Recapping on the pop culture and genre influence, we can clearly identify the whodunit murder mystery of Whodunit, the noir elements of contracts like broken vows, the horror aspects in Purification, akin to cult or slasher horror, and the thriller in the traitor storyline, cat and mouse, dead drops like espionage tradecraft. We covered nods to famous novels and films, And Then There Were None, A Kiss Before Dying, possibly The Godfather, and certainly the Hitman game series and Thief, in terms of mission design. And when it comes to developer insights, while we don't have hundreds of direct quotes in this script, we have a few, it's known that Bethesda's team poured a lot of creativity into faction questlines. As we touched upon earlier, Pagliarulo mentioned that the Dark Brotherhood questline was a chance to flex stealth gameplay and to tell more self-contained narratives with twists, as well as working with ideas from fans he found on forums. And so, as we draw to a close, I just want to underline how unique the Dark Brotherhood questline felt in the good old days when Oblivion first came out. It really pushed boundaries to make the player complicit in truly dark acts while still managing to pull off a compelling human story. By weaving in literary allusions and historical parallels, the writers and developers elevated what could have been a simple evil quest grind into something approaching interactive fiction, if not an actualization of the very concept. As players, we had the choice to inhabit the psyche of an assassin and question whether evil can have principles or if revenge just begets more revenge. It goes without saying that I think the Dark Brotherhood in Oblivion was an absolute masterclass in narrative design. The writers, whether confirmed or not, certainly seem to have drawn from many sources, mythic archetypes of death cults and betrayal, to the pages of modern mystery novels, and stitched together an experience that I certainly will never forget or tire of replaying. And so I hope you've enjoyed this journey into Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood storyline and what did, as well as what might have influenced its creation. Even drawing parallels can be fun, and to be honest, it's something I do naturally because I'm genuinely in love with so many aspects of this questline and these games in general. I can't help but think to myself, is that connected? Was that intentional? I wonder if you've ever felt the same way. In any case, once again, I can only thank you for watching. Until next time.